Hi everyone. Good
Hi,
evening.
Anushka.
How to make an API call in Angular? How to make an API call in the Angular using what?
HTTP client.
Very good. Using HTTP client, we will make API calls. Do we consume the HTTP client directly or do we need to inject it in the constructor?
Inject in a
Yeah,
constructor.
we have to inject that in constructor.
Very good. And for example, can you give me an example of get call?
Name dollar.
Okay. What I said, example of HTTP get call.
Of
That is observable, right? What you're trying to tell. What we will do? So where we will generally make any API call, in which lifecycle hook? In which lifecycle we make the API?
NG on
on
change.
it.
Okay. So if we want to use ng on init, what we should do?
We have to implement that.
Class has to implement on init.
On init interface.
Okay. Then we can use ng on init lifecycle hook. Am I correct?
Yes, Anushka.
Now, how to make one get call using this HTTP? So we can just do this dot HTTP dot get call I said, which is get and the URL we will give. Okay. Free API URLs. You can just take one. Okay. One URL. Yeah. And the URL. Now, does this will return the entire API response to us?
No, Anusha.
Why? What will happen? What is the output? What will be the output? When it will start executing? Now tell me, what is the output of this get method? Check where the function is ending. Are you
After that
able to-
API call.
Yeah. Sorry, Teja, can you repeat? What is the output of a get method? Where is the function ending?
After the API call.
I said, where is the get method is ending? Here you can see, right? Where is the get method ending? Where is the close brace of the get? Where is the close brace? Just read whatever is there here. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Teja, tell. Where is this function is ending? I said a function will contain braces. Am I correct?
Yes.
They are called braces. Am I correct? Now, where is that brace ending here? 1 second, let it load. Where is the brace ending here? Am I talking to all?
Here after undefined it is ending.
Why you took this much time to tell a closed brace? Function ending means brace is ending only, right? Now, what is
Yes.
the return type of this get method?
Undefined.
Return type. Where will you check
Ob-
the return type?
Observe.
Observable.
Observable.
So, since it returns an observable, does this code execute? Does this piece of line will execute? Yes or no? Jansi, you were telling previously.
No.
I think no.
No. When it will start executing?
Subscribe.
We subscribe, then only it will start executing. Am I correct? Why we are subscribing? Since the output of this HTTP get method is an observable, in order to get the response, we need to subscribe, then only we will get the response. Am I correct? What will be contained in this subscribe?
Response, comma, error.
2 callbacks. One callback is for successful response and one callback is for failure response. Okay. You can check console.log of response 18. Okay. And it can take one more callback or the arrow functions, right?
Yes.
Now, are you seeing the response? You're seeing the response, right?
Yes. Amish.
Yes, ma'am.
You can see in the network tab, right? These entries and the headers. This is the URL. We are using the get method and it returns successful response. And you can see the response here. Any doubts, anyone so far?
No, Amish.
No,
Did,
ma'am.
did you understand? Dinesh,
Yes, Anusha.
did you understand?
Actually, I didn't listen yesterday class.
Okay. Please watch it and come back, okay?
Okay.
What are pipes used for?
Transform the given data.
Transforming the given data. How many types
And
of pipes can be there?
2 types.
To
Inbuilt pipes and
custom pipes.
example of inbuilt pipes?
Dot upper.
Dot up.
To
This is
uppercase.
just inbuilt, right? It will not be to uppercase, just uppercase. And
Uppercase, lowercase.
just
Data
lowercase.
pipes.
Okay. Yeah. How to create a custom pipe?
Dot name dot pipe dot.
Okay.
yes.
You need to create one file name
Yes.
called name.pipe.ts and then
And after that, we'll create at the rate of pipe.
At the rate of pipe decorator.
spell the Angular. We will use at the rate of pipe decorator. Then
Then after name dot pipe, pipe
we
name.
give some name for our pipe. Okay. Then
Then
Export class.
class name, class pipe name implements
okay.
transform.
Pipe transform. It implements on pipe transform interface. Okay.
And then using transform.
Method. This interface pipe transform contains one method called transform. And this will take the value wherever we are applying this pipe. Am I correct? And suppose nothing is returned, what will be rendered in the DOM?
Nothing.
Nothing will be
Nothing.
rendered. If we give the return value will get rendered in the DOM. Any doubt anyone till here?
No doubt.
No, Anusha.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, for
It will
example, yeah, Jansi,
Pipe declared in module.ts file.
any pipe created, we have to declare it in module file. Okay. Now we will talk about what are services in Angular. Okay. And let me show you one example. Suppose I will write here app component. Okay. And this is also app component. Let me create one more component. Okay. And component dot, tell me what are the 3 files or the 2 files?
TS and sample.component.html.
Sample dot component HTML. Okay. And we'll go to here. And what decorator we will be using here?
At the rate of component.
At the rate component decorator will be used. And what is the select? What are the things we can give it here?
Select the template URL.
Style URL.
Template URL. And I can use dot slash sample dot component dot HTML. And since I don't want to apply any styles for my component, I am not creating any CSS file. That's why I'm not giving any style URLs. Okay. And how to create the name? What are the next steps? We need to give the component name, right?
Yes, Anusha.
Tell me that. Export
Export
class.
Class.
And
sample.
okay. Okay. Whenever any component is created, what we should do?
We have to declare it in TS file.
TS file or module file? The
Module file.
Module.ts.
module. And give it here. And we'll just give it as import sample component from, or let me do it here. It will be very easier. And what I will do, I will create the service call here, whichever I have done before. Okay. Let me just copy this piece of code and let me run it here. Okay. And now I will use app child component here. Okay. Now the HTML of app child, which is, you can see, what is the selector for this component? App child, which means that I am using this component in the app component. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Anusha.
Okay. Now what I will do, I will make the same API call here as well. Okay. Now let me just run this. So what we are doing, we are having two components. One component is app component and one component is child component. In the app component, we are making one API call, and in the child component, we are making the same API call. Okay, you understood till here, right? Yes or no?
Yes, Anush.
Hello. So let me write some child component. Child component. Okay, let me just save this. Yeah, you can see here there is same API call in the app component and same API call in the child component. Are you able to see?
Yes, Anush.
So that means we are making same API call and we are writing some redundant piece of code. Redundant piece of code means writing repeated code is called redundant piece of code. We are writing repeated code, right? Instead of writing a repeated code like this, what we can do, we can just create one service. Okay, what that service will take care of? This service will take care of making this API call. Okay, and we can inject the service in these two component and we can just subscribe to the data and we can get it. Okay, now to create any service in Angular, okay, we have to create the file name with sample.service.ts. Okay, you need to save the file with .service.ts. Okay, and you need to use one decorator called @injectable decorator. Okay, and you need to use export class, okay, sample service. So this service, what will happen in this service, we basically contain methods. Okay, for example, we will have one method. How to create a method in TypeScript? Method or the function. How to create a function in Angular? How to create a function in JavaScript?
The function name on keyboard.
We use function keyword and then the function name,
Yeah, on function name.
cover braces. Am I correct? So in TypeScript, we need to use the function keyword. We can directly give the name of the service. Okay. Get details. Your wish, whatever name you want to give, you can give. Get API response or anything. Okay. And I said we will make an API call here. Okay. For that, what we need to use for making any API call, what we need to use? For making any API call, what we need to use?
HTTP client.
Correct. So we need to include HTTP client and we need to inject into the constructor. Am I correct?
Yes, Anush.
Okay. Now what we can do, okay. Now you can just do return. This function will return this API call. Okay. This dot HTTP dot get off. Okay. And the URL, which is this URL. Okay, this is the URL. We have created one function and this function is returning this API call. Now now tell me what will be the output of this function? Sorry. What is this actually? What it is returning? I showed you before, right?
Observable.
Observable. Okay. And you can give, since you doesn't know what type of data you will get, you can give just observable of any. Okay. Now what we can do, we can go to the child now if we have created any service, you need to provide it in the module. Okay, what you will do, you will go to the app module and you will give it in the providers. Okay, you will go here, you will give one comma here and you will give sample service and you will just import this service. Okay, any service you have created, you need to provide it in the providers of module file. Okay, and now what we will do, using this service we will make an API call. Okay, how we can do that? We will just take this service and we will inject in the constructor of this service. Okay, and for example, private sample service is the name and it will be of the type sample service. We need to inject the service whatever we have created. Okay, and what is the method in the sample service? It's making this API call. What is the method name? What is the method name which is making the API call here? Are you there?
Yes, Anusha.
Does this service contain any methods? Does this method contain any function? Say yes or no.
No, Anusha.
It is not containing any method. What is this?
Response.
These are braces, right? Giving braces meaning it's a function, right? How do you define a function in JavaScript? You'll give function keyword, name, and the braces. These things, right? This is similar to this, right? You will not.
I think I heard function or method.
Yeah, function or method is the same name. Okay, method means function, function means method. Okay. Now, which method is making the API call?
Function.
What is that function name?
Get API response.
Get API response is the function name which is making this API call. Am I correct? So what you need to do, you need to go to this service and which method you need to call? This dot, okay, sample service dot get API response you will call. And does this method is returning you anything? What it is returning?
Observable.
That
So what we need to do in order to get the response from the observable, what we need to do? In order to get the data from an observable, what we need to do? What we have done here? Subscribe. Okay, we need to subscribe. Then only we will get that API response. Okay. And if you can see, console.log of response. Okay. And this response is from service. Okay, let me just save it and let me just show you. Are you able to see? So we shouldn't write any redundant piece of code, especially while making an API calls. Okay. If you want to make any API call, okay, in two places, the same API call, then what you will do, you will create one service. That service you will create with sample.service.ts or anything. name.service.ts, and at the rate of injectable decorator is used for telling the Angler that it's an service. Okay, and you will just give the class name for your service, and in this you can contain some methods. Okay, for example, this get API response. In this, if you want to make any API call, we need to use the HTTP client and we need to inject it into the constructor. Okay, and in this method, what you are doing, you are returning an observable, this .http.get of an URL, which returns the observable. So what you can do, you need to use this service in your component to get this API call or to make this API call. Okay, for that, what we need to do, we need to inject this service, okay, into the constructor, and you can call directly the method in which we are making the API call, and you can just subscribe to that and you can get the response. Okay, suppose if I just uncomment this piece of code, okay, and let me just rerun it. Now you can see it's not showing, right? Wait a second.
Yes, Anusha.
This is not showing, right? This is because we haven't subscribed to it. That's why we are not getting the response from the service. Okay. So in order to make any API call, if they are redundant, then we will use this services concept. Any doubts, anyone so far?
No doubt, Anusha.
Okay, okay. Now tell me, using this sample service, okay, I want to make an API call, this API call in my app component. How can I do that? So in the child component, whatever I have done, the same thing I want to do it in the app component. So what should I do? So if I want to use any service in the component file, what is the first step? If I want to use any external service, okay, in my component, what is the first step? I need to inject it. That's why we are telling that it's an decorated with injectable decorator. Okay, we need to inject this sample service. Where we will be injecting it?
Sam.
Where we will be injecting it? Sorry, where we will be injecting them?
Module that
I said we need to use service in the component. In order to use the service, we need to inject that service in the component. Where in the file, okay, where in the code base of this app component, we will be injecting this sample service? In the constructor, right? In the constructor, what you will do? You will just inject it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Now, how to call this method in this component? How to call get API response, okay, method which is available in this service in this component?
on init method is used.
We need to you
Use on.
talk. Yeah, sorry, can you repeat it? You are talking very slowly.
ng on init method.
We should use it in ng on init. Okay, how should we use it? How to access this method here?
Dot subscribe response.
Initially, before dot subscribe, what you will write?
HTTP this dot
This
HTTP.
dot HTTP is for making an API call. I said use the method of get API response to make the HTTP call, right? How should I write this piece of code here? Is this sample service is injected in this app component or not? Say yes or
Yes.
no. Yes. What is the name it is injected with?
Sample service.
Sample service.
Sample, not service.
And how should I access the method here?
Using get API response.
Very good. Get using dot get API response. Now you are able to access this method here. Okay. Now what you should do? In order to make this API call, what is its return type? It's an observable, right? If I run this piece
Yes.
of code, will this service execute?
No, Anusha.
No. What should we do then?
Subscribe.
We need to subscribe to that so that we will get the API response. You people are understanding, but you people are not able to tell it. I feel like that. But if you understand properly, you will be definitely able to tell. Any doubts, anyone, or shall I explain this service concept again? Shall we create one more service and do?
Yes, Anusha, shall you repeat it once?
Okay. Now we will create one service. Okay. How to create a service?
Name.service.ts.
Name.service.ts name. Okay. Now what I will do, I'll go here. I will just directly give the service name as name.service.ts. Okay. Now what should I do? What is the decorator which is used to tell it's a service?
At the rate of
At
injector.
the rate injector.
At the rate of injectable. Okay. Injectable is the decorator which is used to tell that it's in service. And then what we need to do? We need to give the name for the service. Okay. How should we do that?
Name,
Export.
export class,
Okay. And then
and name.
name service. Okay. How the name convention should be like if you are creating a component, name component. If you are creating a pipe, name pipe. If you are creating a service, it will be name service. Okay. Now, what we should do? Services contains methods which are accessible in the components. How to create a method now?
This dot
Method. Method means function. How to create a function?
function name.
We have to give
Function
the
name. Get details is the function name. Okay. And if I want to make an HTTP call, what is the prerequisite?
This dot get dot HTTP client.
HTTP client you need to use. Okay. In order to use HTTP client, what you should do?
First we have to import HTTP.
Const.
You need to import and you need to inject it in the constructor. Am I correct? You can write
Yes, sir.
constructor private HTTP and it is of the type HTTP client. Okay. And now how will you be making the get call?
This dot get dot
This dot
get dot.
geta, or you should use the HTTP client to make the get call.
HTTP.
This dot HTTP dot, you can see there are different methods available. One is delete,
Get.
one is get, one is option, one is put, one is post, one is request. Okay. I said use the get call, which means that you need to use the get method. And what should be provided here?
URL.
API URL. Very good. Okay. Let me type it again. This time we'll make another API call. Okay. Yeah. We'll take this. Okay. Now what is the return type of this method?
Observable.
Observable.
Observable. Okay. You will just give one colon and you will indicate observable. Since you don't know what will be the output, you will give any. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now I said whenever any service is created, what we should do?
It is
Whenever,
used in child.
no. Whenever you create any component, you create any pipe, what you will do? You need to provide
to
them or declare them.
Declare.
Provide them. Okay. You need to provide them in the providers. Okay. Services will go to the provider sections, whereas components and pipes will go to the declaration section. Okay. You need to provide in the providers block. Am I correct? Okay. Now I said use the name service, okay, in your app component. Okay, you have to use this name service in the app component, okay, for making this API call. Now what you need to do? In
We
order
have to
to
inject.
we need to inject it. Very good. For example, private, and this I will give as name service, okay, and the type will be name service here. You have injected in the constructor here. How to call this get details method?
This dot
This dot. What is
sample
the service name? What
name
is this?
service.
Name
Name
service.
service. Okay. And if you just give one dot, you will see what are all the methods available here. Okay. For example, if I write get some. Okay, this is one more method. Okay, let me just save it. And if you just press dot and see, the two methods were available. Am I correct?
Yes.
Whatever methods you are writing here, that will be accessed using this name service. Okay. You wanted to use get details, which is responsible for making the API call. Then what you need to do? You need to subscribe. Okay. This way of injecting the service in the constructor of your component and just subscribing to them and getting this response is called dependency injection. Okay.
Can you repeat that again? That word.
Dependency injection. Dependency injection. Dependency means this component is dependent on service. Injection means you are injecting your service into the constructor, right? That is why it is called dependency injection. Angular provides a smooth mechanism for taking the services and injecting it into the constructor and access the all methods of this service and making the API calls and subscribing to them and getting the response. This entire mechanism is called as dependency injection. Any doubts?
No, no.
Shall I repeat this concept again or is it enough? Shall I explain the concept of services once more or is it enough?
I think we have to
Say,
practice that.
if you practice, you will get it. Okay. If you want to create any service in your Angular, okay, you will create with name.service.ts and you will be using at the rate of injectable decorator and you need to give the name for your class and you can contain the methods. For example, if your method doesn't contain any API call, then there is no need to inject this constructor. There is no need to inject this HTTP client in the constructor. If you need to make any API call, then only you will be injecting this. Okay. And if you want to use this service in your component, you need to inject this service into the constructor of your component and you can access the methods available in the service. Okay. This concept is called dependency injection. Okay. Any doubts, anyone?
Okay, Anush. No, Anush.
Okay. And let me talk about suppose I want to create one component. Okay. For example, sample 2 component. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Now I will create one component file, sample3 dot component dot ts. Okay. Suppose if your HTML and if your styles were very small, like 1 line, 2 line, then you need not to create any external HTML file, which is sample3.component.html file. Instead, you can write your template directly in the TS file. Okay, I'll tell you how you can do that. You will use what decorator will be used here for a component?
The red component.
Component decorator. Okay. Now, what are the 3 things it will be available here? Selector, okay,
Template.
sample3, okay, and then the
Template URL.
Template URL.
template URL. When we will use, whenever we have created the HTML file, we will use the template URL. Okay, suppose if you don't want any HTML file, since you are writing a very small amount of the HTML, you can directly give template. Okay, and you can write whatever HTML you want. For example, H1 Anusha. Okay. And suppose if you want, this is for single line, this single quotation. Suppose if you want to write a multiple lines of HTML, then what you will do, you will do backticks. Okay. And you can write H1 Anusha. Okay. And you can write P. This is a paragraph. Okay. And like this. If your HTML is very long, then it's always recommended to use a component file. Okay. Sample3.component.html file. If your HTML is very small, you can use it as a template and you can directly write your template here. Okay. Any doubts?
No doubts, Anuj.
Okay.
No,
And
Anush.
same with the styles. Okay. If you are not creating any style sheet, okay, you can use just styles instead of style URLs, and it's an array. And if it is a single style, which means that for H1 selector, you want to give some background color, blue. So it is just one single line of code, right? So you need not to create, you can just use the styles instead of style URLs. Suppose if your file involves a multi-line, then what you will do, you will just use backticks and you will write all your styles. Okay. Background color like this. So if I load this component, what will be visible in the Chrome? What template will be visible? Suppose if this component is getting rendered in the Chrome, what things will be you will be see in the web page?
Anusha, this is a
Anusha, this is a
This is a
paragraph.
paragraph. Very good. You are understanding, right?
paragraph.
Yes, Anusha.
This is about sample3. I mean to say, this is about the template and the styles instead of using the template URL and the style URLs. If your HTML is very small, you can directly write it in the TS file. Still, this is a component. Okay. Still, even if it doesn't contain the HTML file and CSS file, still it's a component. Okay. Any doubts?
No, Anusha.
Okay. And let me tell you about, actually the time is going to finish. Okay, let me revise the concepts again. Okay. Which operator is useful for creating the observable? I said there is one operator from RxJS which is responsible for creating the observables. If people
Cheers.
Yeah, in RxJS, there is one operator which is responsible for creating the observable. What is that? Of operator. Suppose if I do console.log of name dollar, what will be printed? Just give me
Angular.
a moment. Hello, Amma. If I do console.log of name dollar, what will be printed?
Angular class teaching.
Am I subscribing to this name dollar?
No.
No. Now what will be printed?
Nothing.
Observable it will print, right?
Yes.
It will just print observable, right? You are forgetting everything day by day. Huh? What is this? It's an observable, it's printing, right?
Yes, Anusha.
Suppose if you just subscribe to it, then what will be printed? If you just subscribe to this name dollar, what will be printed?
Angular class teaching.
If I just print name dollar, what will be printed?
Observable will be printed.
Observable.
Observable will be printed. Okay. And how does an Angular application will start?
Angular.json.
You
It-
need to tell
on-
every Angular application consists of one file called angular.json and then
Index and main index file and main.
you need to check two parameters in that angular.json file. Okay, those are index and main, and the main path will be here. Okay, that is main.ts file. What will be there in main.ts?
Bootstrap starting file.
Bootstrapping module, which is the starting module. What is the starting module here?
App module.
Okay, then what are the next steps?
Go to the app component.
App
App module.
module, right? App module, then what you need to look here?
Declare.
What you're seeing here?
Bootstrap app.
You need to
component.
look for Bootstrap, which is the app component, which
App
means that
component.
app component is the starting component. Apart from that, you need to look into index.html. And what is this?
App root.
App root component. Am I correct? This is also known as custom HTML tag. Am I correct?
Yes, Anusha.
Custom HTML tags are also known as direct use. Okay. Custom HTML tags are also known as direct
Directors.
use. Okay. And how to pass the data from child component to parent component?
Using interface.
Interface. Interface is used for what purpose? It's for
Declaration.
defining the types, right?
That's it.
Then how will we send data from parent component to child component? Suppose, okay, I have this name, okay, name variable. I want to pass this name variable to this child component app child. Then what should I do? You people are not practicing. If I want to pass the name variable to this app child, what is the app child here? It's a child component or parent component?
Child component.
What is the parent component here?
Child data to parent data.
App component is the parent component. Am I correct? In the app component, we are using app child, which means this is a child component. Now I am telling a variable which is in the parent component name. Send it to the child component. How can you do that? Teja, Kavya,
Example.
you people are not practicing. You are forgetting everything. Just practice everything. Okay. Whatever is repeated in this Angular class, daily practice them. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand.
Child data to parent data.
That how we should pass it, I'm asking. You need to create one param, right? Data from parent. And what variable you want to pass?
String.
Name, I
Name.
said, right? Name
Name.
is the
Name.
variable name
It's
which you
name.
need to pass. Now what should my child component do? It should take this input. Am I correct?
Yes.
How it will take? Using what? At the rate of input decorator, right?
Yes, Anusha.
And you will give the name. Am I correct?
Yes.
And you can access it in your child component. Just practice these things and come back tomorrow. Okay. I'll ask this
Okay,
again
Anusha.
tomorrow. How to pass the data from parent to child. Okay.
Okay, Anusha.
Yeah. Have a great day, everyone. Just practice and come back. You can use the start list to practice. Okay.
Okay, Anusha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, Anusha.
Thank you.